Welcome back to 340 Paddler, and today I want to talk about Missouri Freedom Race, or Missouri River Freedom Race. It's actually got like 30 different names that people refer to it by. But it's basically 100 kilometers or 63 miles from the Lamine River down to Jefferson City, and is probably the perfect start to the 340. Now, I've covered this race before in a real basic video. I want to deal with a little more detail here. First of all, the beauty of Missouri Freedom is it happens 3 to 4 weeks before the MR340, which means you get to see the river conditions. If you're like me, you're from Wisconsin and you do not do a lot on the Missouri River, it's a great way to get on the river and really see what it's going to be like, to really prepare yourself for the boils, the whirlpools, or whatever else might be out there. It prepares you for having your boat jostled around if you're used to being out on a lake or you're out on a small river where there isn't much traffic or much in the way of hydraulics. It'll get you used to what the water does. It's also an excellent dress rehearsal for the 340. It is again 3 to 4 weeks out, so you have plenty of time to change things. For example, you can focus on outfitting and making sure that your seat is going to be comfortable for at least 6, 7, 8 hours, however long it takes for Missouri Freedom. You can make sure your hydration system works, that you can pack everything you need. And I highly recommend, if you're going to do Freedom, that you go ahead and set up the boat as if you were doing the 340. Carry those extra things so that you get used to what's going on in the boat. You can also experiment with food. It will give you some idea of things that may not work on a really hot day. For example, you might not want hammer bars, but Cliff Bars might be great. Or you don't want hammer bars, but God, chocolate covered bacon would be fantastic, and you really should get some of that before the 340. You also have the opportunity to learn the river. Now, I've done a video on river navigation, but this is getting you out there and allowing you to practice if you haven't been on the Missouri River a lot. You may even have the opportunity to deal with barges. At least 2 of the 3 freedom races that I've done, we've had a barge come through. So it's good to have that practice early in a race that isn't the 340, rather than your first time being day 2 or night 3 of the 340. You'll also learn the various channel crossings, the signs you're looking for. You'll learn to read the river before you get to the 340, so you have an additional layer of comfort when you get to the big dance. In terms of organization, it is fantastic for Freedom. It is put on by Joe. He doesn't really paddle so much as he flies man. And he even runs the race, so he'll be down there with his parents running the event. It generally works very, very smoothly. There will be one checkpoint along the way, generally at Cooper's Landing, and it's just a fantastic event. Which brings us to checkpoints. Now, this is one of the beauties of Missouri Freedom. Of course, we're used to by now the various checkpoints of the 340. But this gives you the opportunity to actually check on some of the checkpoints. You can see what they look like from the water if you've never seen them before. Now, Missouri Freedom starts on the Lamine, which is somewhere in that ballpark, and goes to Jeff City, which is over there. Along the way, you're going to see a lot of very important stops. Franklin Island, which is somewhere in there. Cooper's Landing. Marion and Hartsburg, which is somewhere in that general vicinity. They're a mile apart and across the river, but you get the idea. And it's important to see them from the river, especially when you're conscious and capable of clear thought. Because then when you're not on day 2 or day 3, and you're paddling up to this ramp that you've never been to before, you're going to be a lot more comfortable with it. Even if you breeze right past, at least you know what you're looking for and what your landmarks are before the 340. Then there's food. Of course, Joe usually has hot dogs, brats, burgers, etc. at the finish line. It's usually a really good layout. This will also help you prepare for the heat. Now, if you're someone like me, I'm from Wisconsin, where a hot day is 75, and when it's 30 degrees, we're wearing shorts and a parka. Yeah, don't ask about fashion up here. But it's good for someone like me, or if you're not someone from a hot climate, to take the extra time to come down to Freedom and experience the heat on the water so that you know what you're dealing with. You know how difficult it may well be. And you still have some time to do some heat training before the 340. You'll also get to know members of the paddling community, of the Missouri paddling community, which is fantastic to show up to your first 340 and know some of the people that are already there. And some of them are a little stranger than others. And then there's pacing. Now, this is one of my most important reasons for coming down to Missouri Freedom, is to check the pacing every year. Of course, we all have guides and the lists of checkpoints and everything else. I'm going to hit Lexington at, 2 o'clock. Or if you're Joe Mann, you're going to hit Lexington at roughly 8:30 a.m. on Monday. He goes back in time. It's really weird. Anyway, it gives you the opportunity to see what your pacing really is. Are you going to be up there shooting for the win at the 340? Are you going to be suffering a little more for the 340? Speaking of which, you need to deal with suffering. What is it like to be in the boat for 6 or 8 hours, which is, for many people, an average time between some checkpoints at the 340? Well, this is your opportunity to find out. So being in the boat can cause different reactions for different people. Maybe your butt gets sore and so you get really cranky. Maybe you feel really good sometimes and really bad others. Maybe you discover that music or something else really perks you up, or drinking something cold. And that's a great thing to deal with at Freedom rather than dealing with it for the first time at the 340. Ultimately, Freedom is a fantastic event to warm up for the 340. I believe they usually have between 100 and 150 paddlers. I might be off on those numbers. I apologize if I am. But it's $70 to register online. Registration goes until Friday, June 29th. It's $80 day of race. And the website is there. All racers will receive participation awards, an athletic t-shirt, a post-race massage, and a hot meal. So come on down. And if nothing else, do it to see the beauty that is Jeff City, more specifically Norrin Axis. It's always a great time to come down to Freedom. I highly recommend it. And if you're looking for one last long practice session before the 340, I would highly recommend coming down and doing Missouri Freedom. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, quarrels, qualms, quandaries, curse words, please leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, this is 340 Paddler, hoping that you keep your paddle in the water.